Hello, everyone. Welcome to the final session for Octopus Energy's Insight Sessions. This is the interview prep session. I am Demi, Founders Associate here at Beyond Education, and I'll be leading the session alongside with Farah. So for you guys, can you just please drop your names, your LinkedIn, get to connect with each other in the comments and in the chat. And yeah, let's get to know what you guys are doing and how excited you are for tonight's session. I'll start off first by dropping my name and LinkedIn. Guys, I'm trying to reach 3K in like the next 4 weeks. So if you guys can help me, just a cheeky little plug there. Yeah, I appreciate it. How many followers do you have far, by the way? Do you know?
I was just gonna say, Demi, you've got that in the bag. 3K, easy work. I think this week actually I crossed 15K. So
Ooh,
but you know what? I feel like LinkedIn's a weird one. It never feels like you have that many people in your network because I feel like a lot of people
yeah.
connect and then they lay dormant. So it's not the same, I feel, as TikTok or Instagram, but still doesn't hurt.
Which one is your favorite, would you say?
I really like LinkedIn and copywriting for there, but
Yeah.
TikTok is, I think, better for my audience. So I'm happy to be there
Hey,
for them. But I
that's
prefer
good. That's good.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think I've kind of hacked a little bit of LinkedIn. I think I like it a bit more than anything else. But yes, guys, drop your names in the chat, drop your LinkedIn's in the chat as well, and we can all get to connect. And we'll be starting off in 2 minutes. We can start off now. Good evening, everyone. Like I said, this is the final session for the Octopus Energy Spiritual Insight session. And tonight will be the interview prep session, which is very, very exciting. I know some of you guys might have heard back from Octopus Energy. Some of you guys are still waiting to hear back. So this will be a nice segment for you guys to have to be able to hear what it is you exactly need to do in those interviews to land yourself those jobs. Tonight, I am joined by previous interns Daniel, Naomi, and David, alongside me as well. I was also a previous intern. And we've just basically giving you tips, tricks, ideas about how to navigate the space, what is the best thing to do going into these interviews. So I'll start off with Daniel. Can you just start off sort of with when you did your internship, what was it in, and kind of how you found the internship process at Octopus Energy?
Yeah, no worries. Of course, my name is Daniel. I did my internship in the summer of 2023, and it was in the investment field. So I found my internship to be very eye-opening, especially as it was my first internship, and it taught me a lot. One, how to be personable. My soft skills, my people skills, they grew a lot. And on top of that, because my role was very technical, there were a few things I did have to learn. Of course, because I came from a finance background, from my degree, I knew a few things. But on the job, every day was learning. Like when you're coming into the job, you have to have a willingness to learn and that a hunger to learn as well. And yeah, I believe it's a very good experience, especially for those who are looking to not only get the internship, but to also convert it. I think it would be a perfect opportunity for you.
Definitely. Naomi, what's your opinions on how you found internship and what department were you in?
Hey guys, I'm Niamey. I had my internship in the backend team with Electrobus or Octopus Electrobus. Um, I think it's a really good experience and definitely something to take advantage of. It definitely helps with building your technical skills. It helps with building your people skills. It helps with building your presentation skills. You get to present at the end. Um, there's not a lot of companies where you get the opportunity to be in the room with senior leadership so many times. So also something you can take advantage of in terms of networking and getting to know all these different people in high places. So I think those are definitely the things that I saw in the internship that are very valuable for anyone. Outside that, there were other things that were enjoyable, like all the trips, all the socials. So yeah, it was a lot of fun as well, but you definitely learn a lot at the same time. I think it's a really nice way to break into any field, or is a really nice introduction to the working world. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Naomi. And finally, David.
Hi everyone. I had my internship with the sales and eat pump team, and that was about last year. And best way I would describe the internship was an opportunity for myself to learn information, to get information, gain experience, meet a lot of people, networking, and develop skills that I didn't have previously. And honestly, it was eye-opening. Um, I would say taking up the opportunity, even though it wasn't really tailored towards my tech field, was still a great thing for me to do because I've never had an internship before. So, it was really nice. I met a lot of people. I learned a lot, and I wasn't really isolated to the sales field. I gained a lot of information from other departments within Octopus. I was exposed to different people from different departments, and you're not really put away to what you're doing. You get to actually work and relate with people around you. So yeah, I would say it was really good.
So much for that. And I'll just add on as well, because I did mine 2 years ago as well. I think I found the internship very, very eye-opening, like very exciting. Like Naomi said, like a good introduction into the corporate working world. I would say one thing I really, really loved is the fact that like you're not isolated to just your own team. For example, I was in the energy markets team, but I definitely did work alongside Daniel's team in investment and my other friend's team in ESG. So there's always that kind of interconnection as well. And another thing that I really loved about Octopus was like the culture. Everyone's always willing to help. That was basically the first place I learned how to do anything on Excel. And it was because someone in my team literally took an hour every other week to teach me how to actually do Excel. Like obviously I can sit by myself and learn that, but that actual like dedication to actually wanting to teach me and making sure that I actually understood that was really, really good. Like Naomi said, there were social events, we had trips to Manchester. So there's definitely that kind of like cultural sentiment across all the different offices, both in London and Manchester as well. Another question I want to put forward to you guys as well is what do you think going into the interviews you had to kind of do and how did you prep for that? So I'll start with David, sorry.
Yeah, so I would say the one of the most important things I had to do before carrying out the interview was kind of exposing myself to what Octopus is as a company and the field that I was going to work within. And one thing that I would say is like Octopus is a big company. There are different departments within Octopus, and it's really fleshed out. And actually knowing what I wanted to do in terms of the internship and realizing how much skills I could bring in and what I could learn in regards to um, being able to carry out the internship was important. So I would say I had to obviously prepare myself in terms of answering the questions about my previous experience, my current skills, and also explain why I would like to work at Octopus and also what do I know about the company. So that's what one of the things I had to do.
Thank you so much for that. Naomi?
Yeah, I think going into any interview, one thing I like to do is I like to list out all my experiences, everything I've done, whether in high school for a random club or whether I did it this year. I list out all my experiences, any projects I've worked on, so that I have like all the relevant things I can draw from, so that as I'm being interviewed, I can almost look to that list and think which of these experiences best answers the question that they're trying to pose to me. But other than that, it was a lot of preparation. I think like David said, it was looking into Octopus as a whole and trying to understand a lot about the company. I know during my interview, I was asking a lot of questions around, oh, how does Octopus do this? Or I saw this on social media. I think they had something where someone challenged them, like, oh, I bet you can't give so and so free electricity. And they took it as a whole challenge and this and that. And I asked them different questions about that too. Like, be personable, be yourself, let your character shine through, but at the same time, like, still stay professional, you know. Be willing and be ready to speak about the work that they give you to do. Because I went for a back-end role, I also had like a coding task that I had done. So one of the interviews was us reviewing that. Before that interview, actually look over the code again and like refamiliarize yourself with what you've done in previous stages of the application before you go into the new stage. So you don't want them asking you something about your CV and you forgot that that experience was even on there. Or same thing for a cover letter or whatever else it may be. So anything you've submitted the day before you're going to an interview or something, look over those things again and make sure that you're ready to speak about any of those areas. That's what I'd say.
Perfect. And lastly, Daniel.
Yeah, there are three main things that you need to do, or that I did. The first being, of course, research the company a lot. The second being, know your experiences like the back of your hand, and then take the transferable skills from your experiences and then try and relate them to the role that you're planning to do. Like for me, it was investments. So I had to look at what I'd done before and how the skills I'd gained from the jobs I'd done before could relate to investments. And on top of that, I'm not sure if this was the same for every team, but for my team, there was a case study and there was essentially, I don't want to say what it was just in case they
Yeah.
do it. Yes, I won't say it, but there was something maths based. So when it came to the interview, they asked me, why did I get this answer? Why did I do this way and not that way? So actually know what you're speaking about. Don't just show up on a day and think you're going to waffle your way through it because it won't work. So essentially just know what you're talking about so that you can be yourself. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, you won't be able to be personable because you'll be stressing, you'll be scared, anxious. And more than anything, just be confident because if you've gotten to the stage where they're interviewing you, then they do want to hire you. So you just have to show them why they should hire you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And adding on to what Daniel said as well, yeah, when I was doing mine as well, I had to do a case study and I needed to know that back at the back of my hand to explain that. And I think one thing I've noticed from that experience was they weren't really too particular about the right or the wrong answer. They were thinking about your thought process to why you went through this narrative. So I think it's very important for you to actually do the work and understand what it is you're submitting before going into the interview. One final question for you guys would be, what are the key skills and behavior that you think hiring managers are looking for? So when you were on that interview call, what do you think were the skills that they actually picked on to make you the best candidate for the job? Naomi?
Yeah. I think the big thing is to be teachable. So be ready to speak about the work you've done. Be ready to speak about your experiences. Also be ready to listen to like the correction they put forth, or like be ready to think on the call. So mine was like I said, I had a coding task I had done like the week before. When I had the interview, they were asking me different questions about it. Or why did you go for this? What would be a better alternative? And like I'd have to make different suggestions or like almost follow along with their thought process and learn why. So I think that was a big thing. And then I'm also going with teachable because I think that was one of the main things that helped me through the internship. So for context, I'm on my placement year with Octopus again. So I was on my internship the summer of 2023, and then I moved to my placement the summer of 2024, and I'm still with them now. So yeah, main thing is being teachable, being ready to learn, and then yeah, just be excited about the company as a whole. Like speak about them, ask them questions about them. I had a lot of questions to ask about like part of the reasons I liked the company were because of some of the things I'd seen the CEO, Greg, say in like some different interviews. So he was speaking about this too. Like we do research into the company and then we start to like the company. Don't hide that from them when you're speaking. Because if you like the company and then they don't know you like the company, then for them, you're just another company you've applied to. Like there's nothing that stands them out. So yeah, let's let that passion that you have for the company shine through and like let them know you're excited about the role without saying I'm excited about the role, if that makes sense.
Sorry, was that me?
Yeah.
Oh, it's because the sound was muffled basically. So I would say
Sorry.
that's fine. So I would say um I think the best way to approach it is one of the reasons why my mentor, she told me that one of the reasons why she hired me was because how knowledgeable I sounded. So that necessarily goes back to gaining enough knowledge about the company. But I would say it's not necessarily just about, oh yeah, you researched it and you're like, oh, this is what the company does. Octopus is this, Octopus is that. Like I could remember I had to actually learn what an heat pump is. Before the interview, I did not know what that was. Like, what is an heat pump? So I had to figure that out. And then in the interview, I explained what it was to my understanding, and also being able to express why I would be able to sell it to a customer. So, being able to explain and not necessarily just speak out what you're saying, like you're just regurgitating information. So you know what you're talking about. You're not just talking for the sake of it. So I would say gain enough knowledge as you can. And it helped me in regards to that. And also the one of the most important things within the interview stage is once you're gathered with everyone, your relatability with the manager or the people assessing you is not just enough. You also have to be relatable, and you have to associate with the people around you, because it's really important so that they can see that you can also work with people around you. So it's not just like I'm a lone wolf type of energy. How well do you associate with people around you? How well do you, follow up with the answers that someone else has given? So this are one of the important things that I think I carried out that led me to being able to get the role.
Thank you so much for that, David. That's really insightful. Daniel?
Yeah, during the interview process, I think being likable and being relatable are very important. Um, on top of being teachable, but I'll get into that last. Because during my interview, I built a rapport with my interviewer so that when I actually got the role, it was as if we had known each other for years because we had been speaking about our personal lives and things of sort during the interview. And then next, being teachable. Being teachable is so important because, as Naomi said, during the interview, 1 second. So sorry. So during the interview, as Naomi said, they asked me questions about my application, about the test that I did. And when they were asking me why did I do this instead of that way, when I gave them my answer, they suggested a different way. And I still asked them questions on why they would do it that way instead of the way that I did it. Um, and I think, and in the feedback that I got from them, they highlighted that that was one of the things that stood out. So your interview is a person as much as you're a person. So don't be scared, ask questions, put your foot forward and leave a mark.
Really, really, really good. I think one final question I want to ask you guys is, what are your key do's and don'ts when you're going into that interview, or things that you shouldn't do when you're in the interview and things that you should do when you're in an interview? Let's start with Daniel. Let's go the other way around again.
Hey, things you should do, things you shouldn't do. What you shouldn't do, don't be shy. Because you could have all the information in your head, but if you don't say it, how would they ever know? Um, Also, don't think you know everything because you definitely don't. So you don't want to come across as arrogant. And then things that you should do, smile. It costs nothing to smile. Um, do your research beforehand so you're confident when you go into the interview. And final thing to do, um, if you can, research your interviewer, because I'm not sure if it's the same for Octopus, but or I'm not sure if it's the same anymore. But I knew who my interview was going to be before my interview. So if you can go on LinkedIn, search them up, see if you have anything in common, and then when you get to the interview, speak on that. And yeah, that's it.
I think the things that you should do, I think for me myself, I would say um try to dress as professional as you can. Obviously, if you've been to Octopus, you can kind of tell like the whole corporate vibe is not really their thing, but I would say like, just giving effort to how you look, it kind of tells what type of person you are. So I would say try to dress professionally and also like prepare as much as you can and be confident, have the knowledge and be able to think to yourself that you have the quality to be hired. And one thing that I would say, do not come late. For my interview, someone did come late, and that was the reason they didn't get the placement, so the internship. So I would say, don't come late. Come obviously as early as you can, but be punctual. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And finally, Naomi.
Yeah, I think we've covered a few things in like doing research, making sure that you're like, I think one thing you could do is starting to ask yourself questions that you think they might ask you. So going based off the kind of company you think they are, going based off the role that you're going to be doing. So the same way David or Daniel, I think David spoke about heat pumps, like going and doing research on that and starting to understand, okay, they could ask me about this. So let me understand a little bit about it before I actually get to the interview. Just start to think, if I were the interviewer interviewing someone for this position, what types of questions would I want to ask them? And then researching that way. I know I've heard that from someone that's doing really well in their career, and that's how they go ahead. Before they submit a task to their manager, they ask themselves, what would my manager say looking at this? And then they take that next step before actually submitting it. And then I'd also say practice your speaking. So it's really weird, but the way you speak can impact a lot of things. So put effort into your appearance, but also practice your speech. So for example, if I speak to you like this, and I'm just like, hey guys, I'm Naomi. Yeah, I worked on something yesterday. It was pretty cool. It's really different if I speak to you like this. So you want to be able to whether vary your pitch or I don't know, just think about it, try to record yourself and listen to yourself back. There's ways that you can speak that are more engaging. There's ways that you can speak that basically lose everyone that you're speaking to. So practice that because that helps your excitement like shine through. So yeah, I think those are the two main things I'd recommend. And then just try to look out for any filler words or anything you add as you speak. So whether it's a lot of maybe just try to improve all those different things. I think those are the main things I'd suggest. If you've done your preparation and you have those things, I think you'll be very well equipped to pass the interviews.
Thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you so much, Daniel, Naomi, and David. Those are very, very, very amazing insights. And thank you for coming here this beautiful Thursday evening to provide that to our interns, potential interns. So now we'll be moving forward to the main section, which you guys are all waiting for, with our amazing career coach, Farah. Farah, also known as the grad coach, will be leading the session today and telling you all things about how to become an unforgettable interviewee. So sit back, relax, but also make sure you're taking notes and you're listening in because you do not want to miss this. But welcome, Farah.
Thank you so much for an intro. And actually, just thank you so much to all three of you interns because golden nuggets from first-hand experience, just take heed of what has been said. I will try to sort of remind of things where I'm like, yes, absolutely, but I'm also going to do my best to say some extra things that haven't been said already. So yeah, ignore the Monday. This was from Monday. I did a live 90-minute segment, so I'm going to do a bit of a whistle-stop tour this evening. But yeah, just to set the scene for anyone who doesn't know me, it's so lovely to meet you this evening. Thank you for being here. This is a huge win that you've shown up. You are automatically beating your competition by turning up to things like this. And yeah, backstory about me. I used to be, firstly, a graduated in 2016, of all things, with a theatre and performance degree, but managed to get myself into a business management grad scheme. So I am living proof that you don't have to put yourself in a box. It's about what you can do, not where you're coming from. And very quickly in that grad scheme, I became a graduate employer. So I worked as a hiring manager. I hired well over 200 students and grads, but unfortunately rejected probably 4 to 5 times that. So I have that first-hand experience of making real-world decisions about who I was going to hire, who I wasn't, and why. So I'm really excited to share that unique hiring manager perspective today, as well as, of course, everything I've learned from then, the work I've done over the last 3 years. So I've been so fortunate to work with over 170 of you brilliant grads to get into a variety of sectors and roles. Here are some of the companies, it's not all of them. And I literally said this last night. And again, today we've had 2 job offers. So I really do need to update this literally from this week. So lots of exciting things here. And essentially, if they can do it, why not you? So without further ado, we're going to do, like I say, a more micro version of my masterclass from Monday. I'm going to start off by sharing the psychological formula for being the one that gets actually noticed and hired at that final stage interview. So you don't want to be falling at that final hurdle. We want to be turning that interview into a final offer. So I'm going to be sharing my insight there. And then I will run us through the 6 major question types and really the biggest mistakes that the average graduate stands to make and what top 1% candidates are doing differently, what they say, what they don't say, what they do, and anything else I can share so that you can steal that and take inspiration for your own interview style. So yeah, without further ado, let's crack straight on. What is this psychological formula? And I do want to stress, by the way, this isn't just fancy copywriting. I literally mean it when I say a psychological formula, because I've been both the recipient of this and the giver of this, and it's tried and tested stuff. And everything that I've learned from the last 8+ years is the following. By the end of a recruitment process, you need to have in equal measures an emotional argument for being hired and a logical argument for being hired. Now, what do I mean by both of these? Let's unpack it a little bit. Firstly, let's talk emotion. This is in essence, why do they want to hire you? Cultural fit, good vibes, connecting, rapport, charisma, all that great stuff where they can visualize truly loving working with you in the future. And emotion is so powerful, and I'm going to talk about that more in a second. But firstly, let's think about logic. This is then, why should they hire you? Out of all of your competitors, what is unique and special about you that really is going to give them the biggest return on their investment? And I want to stress, when I say that, I don't mean you have to be the finished article from day one. Nobody is, but especially as a graduate, we're getting started in our careers. This could look like you having the hunger and the drive to be the best intern possible, where you get the maximum learning that leads to future ROI results and that sort of thing. So don't worry if you haven't got everything yet. It's about showcasing how, through evidence and logic, you can prove to us you can do that in the future. So the question really is today, where are you falling perhaps a little bit short? Because most people have a slight imbalance, and our job here is to rebalance it. So I'll walk you through 2 scenarios. If you are good with emotion, but you're lacking in logic, you're probably going to hear the following from your final interview. We loved meeting you. You had great enthusiasm. This was a pleasant conversation, but sadly, we had to go with another candidate. They might say, essentially someone who was more experienced, or they might not disclose that, but that is most likely what they are saying. So unfortunately, we needed to convince them more that you could compete with people who perhaps seemingly have more experience than you. If it was the other way round, this is where you have great logical arguments, but you're lacking in that emotional side. So you might hear something like, you were a great candidate, but we didn't feel you were the right fit or a strong cultural fit for our particular company. And that can be tough because transparently, I hate ghosting. There's just no excuse. I truly believe every single candidate should get feedback, but this can happen where they don't end up telling you that because it's slightly awkward. Nobody really wants to be honest and say, oh, we actually just, didn't like you for whatever reason. So you might actually just find yourself getting ghosted, which sucks, but it might be an indicator that there was a bit more emotional argument that needed to be filled there. So the question is, which side do you feel you need to work on with your interviews? And again, there's no judgment here. We are here for you to learn, for you to reflect in a safe space. So I'd love to hear in the chat which side you want to be thinking about this evening. And it'll be interesting to see actually, yesterday, we had about 80 to 90% of people saying they wanted to work on the logic, but they felt quite good with the emotion. But I will be intrigued to see in the chat if there's a little bit of difference this evening. So yeah, let's see what we think. Okay, so maybe already emotion. Oh, somebody's saying emotion actually. Leon, thank you. You're saying definitely the logic side. Okay. Thank you, Tosin. Emotion, Tade, logic. By the way, guys, I'm really, really sorry if I'm not pronouncing everybody's name perfectly. My name, Farah, gets said in lots of weird and wonderful ways. So I know how that feels. I'm sorry if in advance I'm making any mistakes. Okay, interesting. Please continue to share and do keep this in the forefront of your mind. But transparently, most graduates I've interacted with over the years, they're very good with emotion, but they need to work on their logic. And it is that case of how can I build credibility and authority with my examples? And a lot of graduates can really trivialize what they've done before. You might be telling yourself stories like, well, I don't have that flashy internship. I didn't go to a Russell Group uni. I don't have a first class degree. And somehow we've been told over the years that they're the things that build authority. And yeah, they can, but not always. I think there's a lot more to the story. So it's not a case of whether you have a logical argument. Everybody does. It's about finding it and finding the confidence to actually say it and claim it. So we're going to be obviously having some tips and tricks with how to do that. But yeah, for now, let's start thinking about these question types. So firstly, we're going to get started with the classic motivational questions, aka why questions. So things like, tell me about yourself, why this role, why this company, why this even specific sector, like the energy sector, for example, for Octopus, or maybe even why you. And just to go back for a second, if we could give a sort of emotional or logical rating here, I definitely think both are important, but I would say emotion is that little bit stronger here, especially when it comes to something like Octopus. They're really going to want to know, what is it about this particular opportunity that is exciting you? How can you prove that through the level of the research that you've done and just the demonstrable interest that you have? I really think, especially because it's an internship, that's going to go such a long way. So bear that in mind. And yeah, just a couple more actually to add to the sort of motivational theme. It could be like a double question. So what do you know so far about Octopus Energy and why therefore do you want to work for us? So you sort of have to treat it as a double answer. And also some classics that I think do come under this category is, where do you see yourself in 2 to 5 years? I.e., what are you motivated to do in the future? And what are your strengths and weaknesses? These can all typically happen in the first 5 to 10 minutes of an interview. It's generally the first place we start. So the question is, where do candidates go wrong? And what do top 1% candidates do differently? So the big one I want to stress, and there is an overlap with what our amazing interns have already said, but the big one is being way too generic. If I feel like what you're saying to me could be repeated to my competitors up the street, or really just any old company that's willing to pay you 25, 30, 35 grand, I'm not going to feel that different and special. And in the same way that we all want to feel different and special, we want to feel valued by an employer, they actually do need to hear that back as well. So don't underestimate them. They're emotional creatures as well. So really, it's a case of making it personalized and specific and use that to your advantage. I have got some others. Let me just check if there's any that we haven't. Yes, I will say a few things. I think Naomi, you said this earlier. I definitely agree that your delivery has to match the language. You can't just say that you're excited by the role and not convince me in your non-verbal or in your tone of voice. So the delivery is just as important as the planning of what you're going to say. That is paramount. I think the other thing I want to stress is if you don't sort of have that preparation towards these questions, because it's at the beginning typically of an interview, it can really feel make or break for us as the interviewer, but also for you and your confidence. There's nothing worse than having a shaky start and you have to pull it back. It will be amazing if, like a top 1% candidate, you could have a truly faultless delivery at the beginning. We know these questions are coming. They're going to have to ask some combination of these. So if you can be rehearsed and polished and just ready to go, that is going to breed confidence in yourself and in us. And that just keeps on bubbling away in the best possible way for the rest of the interview. So there's kind of not really an excuse to have this in the bag. Please, please, please put the practice into this first bit as if it's one priority, prioritize this. But also, 1% candidates are going to have what I call beyond the website reasons. Everybody can look up a website, but not everybody will go a step further. And this could look like literally this evening, coming along to an insight session. You can literally quote now that you've met Naomi, Daniel, David, Demi, and they've given you specific little nuggets that's a real slice of their internship experience. You can leverage that now and say something that not everyone will say. It could be a personal connection that you have to Octopus. Maybe you're an actual customer of them and you've firsthand seen their world-class customer service. Maybe you follow Greg Jackson, CEO on LinkedIn. He's actually got quite a significant personal brand and he's impressed a lot. So yeah, there could be a real reason there as to why you're interested. And really, like I said earlier, the passion and the assertion has to match what you're saying. So if I can hear language like, this is truly the perfect role for me because of X, Y, and Z, or I know that I can excel here because of X, Y, and Z, that language, again, breeds confidence. It's not fake it till you make it, because I really do want you to believe it and feel it and see it. But if you can use that language, it really does settle and reassure us. So be bold and please go for it. Humble gets nobody hired. And it's not the same as being arrogant, by the way. Assertive is very different to being arrogant. So maybe we'll come back to that later. So there we are. That's motivational questions. We're going to move on to the next most likely question, which is our classic competency-based questions, aka tell me about a time when you've done X. Now, in terms of the breakdown of the emotion versus logic, again, emotion is still there. The power of great storytelling is always going to be emotionally compelling. So we don't want to lose that. But I would say it is overwhelmingly a logical section, because if you can bring the right examples, say them in a powerful, relevant way that's engaging, we're really going to be convinced of your future potential. And that's the North Star that we're heading for here. Who can be the best return on my investment? So it's logic all day with these. Typical questions can really vary depending on the spec. So actually, this is something I do want to take a second to unpack. Everybody this evening has access to the Octopus Energy operations spec. And believe you and me, I believe actually Stephen wrote it, maybe you yourself as well, Demi, but this has been written by specific people who are trying to make clear this is the ideal candidate to us. So we have to run with that information. My advice is that you take the spec and you highlight every single whiff or clue of a skill, a quality, a feature of the job, anything that is in some way showing this is what the ideal candidate is to us. And in the beginning, you'll have quite a lot highlighted. This is just an example from a grad client of mine who went for an interview for Homes England, and this was literally what we did together. When you have everything highlighted, the next step is to then start to put it into buckets or themes. So for example, you might notice multiple points in the Octopus Energy. In fact, yes, if I remember correctly, the Octopus Energy one spoke a lot about customer service delivery. It is evident how passionate they are about making that happen for customers as a non-negotiable. So for me, that's going to be a bucket. That's going to be one that we can reverse engineer into a competency-based question. Tell me about a time you've shown exceptional customer service. And again, it could be retail, it could be hospitality, it could be working at McDonald's. It doesn't really matter, but so long as you can sell it, that's going to be a great competency-based response. But there'll be other buckets and themes. So don't just leave it there. Really exhaust it and think probably sort of 5 to 10 is a good ballpark to aim for. So if you're ever in doubt and you're thinking, I just don't know what to expect, you do, please leverage that spec because it's got more hidden clues than what you're probably estimating. So, little section here on where do candidates go wrong? For me, the biggest thing is poor structure. So if we don't have a good enough structure, I think it will lead you to missing key information. And a lot of us this evening will have heard about the STAR method. I'm not saying never use it, but I actually think there's something better, which I think a top 1% candidate will be using instead. So I'm going to walk you through that in a second. But even if you did use STAR, if we're not sticking to something, we might then miss out even saying the actions or saying the results at the end. And that's such a travesty because that really locks in the comprehension of your story. Let me just check if there's anything else I would definitely say. Yes, something I would say actually is where you can go wrong is just picking the wrong examples or just weaker examples. And my advice is to think holistically about yourself and ask, what is the strongest example of me demonstrating this skill? Or even, what's the strongest one that less people will have in common with me? If it's a USP, like a unique selling point, a unique story, or something that you've done or achieved, or that sort of thing, that can be really compelling because not only is it powerful, it's also scarce and therefore even more valuable. So have a real think about that. Like, for example, I wouldn't advise if I said, tell me where you've challenged yourself the most or where you've got out of your comfort zone the most. I probably wouldn't recommend you use your degree unless you've got a very, very good story to justify why, because everybody's going to have a degree, more or less, going for a role like this. It's a prerequisite. It's not anything that makes you different and special. So full respect to your degree, but I wouldn't use it. You need to use it in the right moments. So what are top 1% candidates doing differently? For me, they are using the Carl method. And again, I want to stress, I've worked with over 170 clients. Almost everyone has converted to the Carl method, and they say it's genuinely easier to remember and follow through, and it's better. So win-win in my books, and I'd love to just walk you through what it is. So essentially, it takes all the good stuff from STAR. So we've got the actions and the results, but we have better bookends to our storytelling. So instead of situation and task, we're going to call it challenge. And the reason why challenge is better is because it's a more efficient and more powerful way to set the scene and paint a picture of what you were up against. So it's going to force you to not just pick any old customer service story, pick the biggest one, the challenging one, where you had to go from A to B, from 0 to 100, of maybe turning around a really, really upset client to making them super happy, all because of what you did. So that's the beginning of our story. And if you paint a picture, it's going to be really enticing and it's going to hook us in. We're then going to have our actions, which is like the middle of our story. And my advice here is that you're going to have 2 to 3 specific personal things that you did to address the question's topic. So again, not just any old actions, but what did you do from A to B to give exceptional customer service? Firstly, I did this. Secondly, I did this. Finally, I did this, all to build exceptional customer service. And then lastly, as we get to the end of our story, we of course have results. So all that quantitative stuff, one of the interns said about, yes, Daniel, I think you were saying about don't be shy to repeat details. This is so true. You're going to most likely, hopefully, have some really lovely quantifiables on your CV. Please do not assume that they're just going to remember that. You need to keep repeating your greatest hits to people. So please tell us those results in the section of your story. But also, you can think qualitatively as well. So happy customers, all-time high staff morale, or even just a personal sense of accomplishment. Maybe it was something that you never thought you were going to be able to achieve and you did, and you're so proud of yourself. That's really, really nice information because it gives a richness to your story and really humanizes you as well. That's the emotional side. And then finally, the learning/linking. This is what STAR fails to do, and for me is an absolute travesty, and I can tell you that as a hiring manager, because STAR doesn't tell us why this story matters. Why does this matter to me and the role that I'm looking for, this exact role, this exact company that I'm trying to recruit for? So make life easy for us. If you can share from that story your greatest learnings that's going to pay forward and make you an exceptional intern, or how does your story link back to the demands and the challenges that you're going to face in this role at Octopus? That's absolutely going to cement it for me, because rather than me having to connect the dots of, well, that's your story over here, this is what I'm looking for, I guess I'll build a bridge. You're building that bridge for me. You're making it so much easier for me to say yes and understand everything that you have to offer. So that's absolutely huge. For the sake of time, I'm going to move on to number 3, which is strength-based questions. So just for context, we're now starting to get into territory where it might not always happen in an interview. Sometimes employers will say off the bat, this is going to be a strength-based interview, in which case I always recommend motivational questions, just always as a given, and strength-based questions for your prep. If they don't specify that, then I'd say always have it up your sleeve anyway. You never know. So strength-based questions are essentially tell me what you enjoy or tell me what you're naturally good at. And I would say emotion and logical breakdown, they're mostly on the emotional side. Companies generally use them to when it's more of an entry-level role, so possibly something like an internship or just a more entry-level full-time role, where they recognize that you don't necessarily have the relevant experience, but they want to see your potential and look at you more holistically. So bear that in mind if you think it's going to be a role like that. Octopus might potentially fall in that category, just as a little clue. So what can these sound like? So typical questions can be, oh, actually, sorry, can I just double check that everyone can hear me okay? I've just noticed that my my AirPods have died.
We can hear you all
Really
good.
fun.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. I'm just going to turn my off. AirPods, man, like they just don't last long enough. It's so frustrating. Okay, so typical questions. How would your friends and family describe you? What energizes you at work or in general? What is your proudest achievement and why? These are all very sort of classic ones. There are others, but I think this is a good starting point. And in terms of where candidates can go wrong, the biggest one for me is you don't have enough displayable self-awareness. And that's going to lead you to giving very short, very surface level answers. And I do just want to say, I get it. It can be a little bit unusual to sort of talk about yourself this personally or holistically, but you really need to max out your time here. I've known candidates to take 20 seconds to answer a question like this. I've known people to do a whole 3 minutes. It's up to you to sort of give that juicy detail, because the more context we have, the more we have to assess and get to know about you. So that actually leads me on to my top 1% candidate behaviours. They are chronic oversharers in the most professional sense. They're not going to be phased about talking at length about lots of juicy details. They might give a little micro story or an example or just a few more insights to really pad out what you're trying to tell us about your personality. So please challenge yourself and remember, we want to hear you talk. I promise you, it's not like we're sitting there bored or that we don't care. we actually actively want you to overshare so that we've got more to assess. Other little top tips is if you've ever done any psychometric tests or just personality quizzes. I love a good personality quiz. And there's a couple that I'd recommend. That's really nice to sort of lace into your experience. So you might say something like, well, I actually did an assessment and I know that my core values are X, Y, and Z, which is why naturally I would be interested in a role like this. The other ones to show you are Honey and Mumford. You can Google this. It is a learning styles quiz, and there are 4 main learning styles that most people will fall into. For me, I'm a pragmatist, so I like to see the why behind what I'm doing. If I don't have that, I kind of struggle to be brought in. But you might be an activist, you might be a theorist, or other combinations, so worth looking into. And also, I love disc profiles. They can be used in psychometrics, but also once you're hired, sometimes you do a disc profile as well. And again, it's a way to sort of categorize what your intrinsic personality style is. And it can really be enlightening. It can really be like, right, okay, I'm a dominant character. That's why I'm results driven. That's why I like fast-paced, extroverted roles. But you might be the total opposite. So little juicy nuance can go a really long way to just stand out. And one last thing I would say is please do not be afraid, especially for a company like Octopus, to share more of the personal side about yourself. And I'll actually tell you a story from a client I literally just had a call with. He's just been hired by Mott MacDonald as an electrical engineer. 90-minute interview, seemingly pretty intense, but it was all strength-based. And he connected his Muslim background to the want to work for electrical engineering, where he can benefit millions of people and like our national community, essentially, just help people in a very practical sense. And they absolutely loved it. They ended up then having a conversation about, are you fasting right now? Because this was a couple of weeks ago, and the interviewer was also Muslim. And so they actually had a moment where they bonded about, yeah, I'm exhausted right now, but I'll keep going. It's a 90-minute interview. So it's amazing what you can do when you drop your guard that little bit and take a risk and share a bit more about yourself. It's a lovely way to humanize yourself and make yourself memorable. So take that risk, because this is an employer who's inclusive. So I think they will actively want to get to know you on a deeper level. So we're at the halfway point. In terms of questions, by the way, we are going to have time for questions. So just hold on to them until we get to all 6 of them, and then I'll be really, really keen to hear what's going around in your mind at the moment. But yeah, number 4, we're on to situational questions. So this is essentially, what would you do in X situation? Again, you might not really get these, but it's good to have them in your back pocket just in case they crop up, because they can catch you out from time to time. And again, in terms of the emotion versus logic, there's not really a lot of room for emotion here. At most, you might be posed with a situation where it's like, for example, what would you do to keep a client happy if they were upset about something? Emotional intelligence, if you can weave that into your response, that will show emotion. But otherwise, it's quite a logical set of questions. So something to bear in mind there. Typical questions, I personally would put them into 2 categories. Either you might get a this or that question, or would you rather. One that I've had 2 clients actually have in different interviews is, would you rather cut corners or miss a deadline? Seemingly the impossible scenario. We kind of don't really want to do either, but they're forcing your hand into making a decision and giving a justification. So that could be how it's presented. Or most likely it will be, imagine X happens, what would you do in this situation? So for example, imagine a new client calls you up and asks for a last minute marketing campaign revision, but this is not agreed upon in their contract. What would you do to ameliorate the situation? And this leads on to where candidates can go wrong and where top 1% candidates are going to shine. In terms of where you might go wrong, the instant panic can set in, and that's going to lead you to not think, just go for it and give a bit of a knee-jerk reaction, when actually, if you just afforded yourself what you absolutely deserve, by the way, 5 to 10 seconds, if not more, to just think and get clear, you could have given, 5 times the better response. So that is definitely what I'm going to say here about top 1% behaviors. That pre-step, give yourself permission to think. I actually almost rate it. I actually respect it when somebody is confident enough to either just sit there in silence and then give me a cracker of a response, or if you really want to, you sort of caveat it and just say, oh, like, that's a really interesting question. I'm going to take a second to think about that, and then take your time. Glass of water, that'll cliche, but like, use these things, but you're absolutely allowed to stop and think. And then I would say step 1 is you're probably going to explain what you've understood about the scenario itself. I would call them pain points. So if we go back to this example for a second about the new client and the marketing campaign, you might want to say at the beginning, well, I'm acknowledging a few things here. Firstly, you mentioned that it's a new client. So my expectation is that we want to keep them happy, but also we want to start as we mean to go on in our working relationship. You've also said it's a last minute campaign revision. So for them, that could be quite stressful, but also for our team could be quite stressful. So I'm going to need to consider that. And most importantly, you've said it's actually not in their agreed contract. So that puts us in a bit of a grey area. Based on this all, this is what I think I would do about this situation. And that's lovely because it's showing the nuance of your listening. We don't want just a generalized response. It's with respect to the exact scenario we've given you. So please do take that time and don't hesitate to ask us again. I want to understand, or can I just check a couple of details? Do you mind just repeating that one more time? Or can I just clarify, you did say that was a new client, and then you can be off and away. And I would say, as a final thing, walk us through, again, 2 to 3 tangible, preferably chronological steps, and justify as you go. Because even if your 2 to 3 actions are not perfect, we're going to love the thought behind it. And I've hired people before where technically their answer was wrong, but I liked where they were going with it. And that was enough. So don't aim for perfection here. It's near on impossible to get these perfect. Nobody's going to feel comfortable with these. But if you follow these kind of steps, I think you'll be onto a winner. So, commercial or technical questions. As we're going for an ops role for Octopus, it's not really going to be technical in the sense of it's not engineering, it's not a developer role. So it's not going to be anything like programming or coding, that sort of thing. It's more on the commercial side. So this could look like a full-on case study, which obviously is a bit more nuanced, or it could just be just simple questions that are thrown your way. So for example, marketing, it could be, what do you think are the biggest AI threats and opportunities for our sector right now? Or for banking, it might be, what do you think are some of the biggest consumer behavior trends that you've observed since the pandemic with regards to banking? And my advice here, where so many grads go wrong, is just imposter syndrome leads you to crumble, and you trivialize what you already know. I promise you, we do not need you to have PhD level responses. We recognize you're a grad, you're a junior, you're getting started. But be confident with sharing what you do know, because chances are you have a hell of a lot more to offer than you think you do. So don't let imposter syndrome rule you. In terms of commercial questions, top 1% candidates, I call it OTT prep, but essentially it stands for opportunities, threats, and trends. My advice is just before any interview, think about the role and think about the sector and just ask yourself, like, what is going on in this sector? What are the trends right now? What are the opportunities? What are the threats? I mean, I feel like so many of us, without realizing, have commercial awareness. Even if you just flick through, the news or YouTube, you'll see easily that, energy is a huge topic right now, cost of living crisis, more and more people struggling to pay their bills. It's like, am I going to eat or am I going to turn the heating on? In terms of opportunities, maybe something you wouldn't know, but I'm happy to share now. Our Labour government is wanting to launch Great British Energy, where they're hoping to save £93 billion on people's bills. but I don't know whether we're going to get there. That they have huge goals of getting to clean energy by 2030, but maybe that'll happen, maybe it won't. It's definitely an opportunity, but there could be some threats as well, like, supply chain, what's been going on in Ukraine and Russia, what that's done to the cost of living crisis and the energy crisis. So don't feel you have to be an expert. That I've just gleaned truly from just being on YouTube and just taking a little bit of an interest, but please feel free to steal what I've said and do more research off the back of that. And then in terms of other top 1% candidate behaviors, leverage what you've got. Because if Greg Jackson has a huge personal brand, he might be doing blogs every other week. He might be on news channels. I think one of the interns, I can't remember who it was, said that he, watched on interviews. That's amazing. So leverage that stuff, a wide range of sources. And the final thing I would say is don't be afraid to make it a conversation. You can give your opinion and then you can say, what do you think about my stance on this? Or I'd actually love to know, if we have time briefly, what is your personal take on X? I know you could even wait until the very end and you could circle back to it and just be like, oh, based on what we said earlier, I was actually really curious to know. But you can actually just be bold and make it more of a conversation there and then. Again, this is top 1% behaviors, so take a risk and see how it goes. But most likely people will be impressed that you had the confidence to make it a conversation. And lastly, we have wildcard questions, which essentially means anything goes. I've had some wacky ones. Even this week, actually, that one of my clients said that they had, it's totally gone out of my head now, but it was a really weird one. I'd literally never even heard it before. But these are essentially, they could be very wacky in terms of, if you could be a kitchen utensil, what would you be and why? If you could be a dog breed, what would you be and why? These are all real ones, by the way, that grads I know have had. It could also be like quick fire knowledge rounds. I don't think Octopus will necessarily do that, but I've known clients to go for sales roles or venture capital where they just get grilled with like, tell me what you know, who are our clients, who's the CEO? So that can be interesting. And lastly, I think probably the most likely ones is they're kind of commercial, but they're also wild at the same time. How many dryer cleaners do you think there are in London? Or how many tennis balls can you fit into a delivery lorry? They are kind of commercial, but also just because they're so crazy, I put them in the wild card category. And my advice here, the number one place where grads can go wrong is because it's so unexpected, it can lead to a bit of an internal meltdown. It's that thing of, oh no, I was not expecting this. I was doing so well. And then suddenly it's like night and day. Your non-verbals change, your tone of voice change. You're essentially self-rejecting before we have a chance to reject you. And that's really sad. I've seen this live so many times where candidates just throw in the towel. Never throw in the towel. Fight until the very end. And you don't know what's going to happen. So just don't judge it. And that is essentially what a top 1% candidate will do. Number one, they will see the fun, the humor, the inherent challenge in it, and just go for it. If you can have that air of, oh, wow, I was not expecting this, but whatever, let's do it, versus, oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world, I'm going to crumble, it's night or day. And again, take the time to think, just like with the commercial questions. Even if you do over 10 seconds, that is fine. You can, again, just caveat and be like, wow, I've literally never heard that question before. I'm certainly not going to forget this one. Let me take a second to think about this. Absolutely fine. So long as you can just lay out your thoughts or your justifications, I think it's going to be a great response. And again, back to the dry cleaners one for a second, because I've had a few people ask me questions about this. You do not have to get the right answer. It does not matter. It's not even about that. It's about just how are you going to go about it, because it's near on impossible to know without literally looking it up. So it's about how you approach it, not the accuracy. So there we are, folks. They are the 6 type of questions. I would really love to know in the chat if you had to pick one or a couple that you'd like to be working on. put in the chat, give me the numbers. Will be interesting to see actually what people are thinking in light of seeing
Yeah,
this.
thank you for that for our amazing session as well. David even said in the chat that he's been asked, "What do you think about the color yellow?" Like that is so weird. Like,
Oh man.
but yes, guys.
Can I put you on the spot, David, and say, do you remember what you actually said?
Ooh,
I mean, fortunately, before the interview, like I saw like a couple of flowers, like basically specifically like a sunflower. So when they asked me the question, so I just said, I don't know, like a flower. But it was so weird, like it was so confusing. But thankfully I had an answer to, just give up on the spot.
Yeah. No, I love it. And this is the thing, there's no right or wrong answer. The wrong answer is saying nothing. And I think that's another thing I wanted to highlight. Sometimes you need to think it, but not overthink it. Go with your first gut instinct, because usually there's going to be one thing that crops up in your head. Just run with that. Your first idea is usually your best idea when it comes to these high pressure situations. So go with that and run and run with it. But I'm very curious as well if anyone also has had a weird and wonderful question that has not been covered this evening. I'm just sort of collecting these at this point. So just side note, I'd really love to hear. But yeah, otherwise please do put in the chat now. I'd really love to in as much detail as you want. I'm here to help.
yeah, I think whilst we're waiting for them to put in the numbers, there's a couple of questions come through, so we can just start with those for now. So Tosin said in a face-to-face interview, do you think it's fine to have some notes on hand?
That's a great question. One little caveat is if you're not neurotypical and you actually request it as an adjustment, that's a different conversation. I've had clients who are on the autistic spectrum, or for whatever other reason, it genuinely does help them to have something physical in front of them, and that's really allowed them to excel. So that's one thing. If you're not in that category and you're just thinking on a general level, my advice is be really, really critical with yourself. Is it a crutch that's allowing me to sort of shield myself from the interview and just not be fully present? Then be mindful of it. If instead you can genuinely take a glance, maybe I'm a fan of just bringing in your CV, because people just do that anyway, and then you can just quickly glance. But just be careful, because again, it's about developing the skill over time of being able and trusting yourself to speak around things. Perfect scripts or just reading from ChatGPT, that in the long run does not work.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my one concern about notes.
Yeah, I would say something that we also mentioned yesterday on the IQ score that I mentioned was that going into an interview, I normally have the three main things that I definitely think I just want to talk about. So these are the core three experiences or the core three things within the experiences that I have that I want to bring the interviewer's attention to. So have those three at the top of my head. I think if anything, if I know that I've justified, if I know that I've spoken about these experiences really, really well, that for me is justified as a good interview. I think in terms of notes, that's kind of what would help in terms of like, okay, I know I've got one, two, three experiences, and anything else, I would just trust myself that I've done enough research and I've done enough work and I've prepped enough to kind of go through with that. So I think that could also help with the note situation as well.
Yeah, I love that. And probably if it was me, I might just have those three things just on my hand. I don't think it warrants a full flashcard or something like that. It's just like a subtle way just to have it there. But find your own rhythm, and yeah, best of luck with navigating that one, Tosin.
But a quick question: how popular are in-person interviews these days?
Yeah, I feel like for final stages, they're becoming in vogue again.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I've not actually heard of a client in this year have a final stage interview not in person. Assessment centers can be not in person, and they can be a final stage, but they're so multifaceted anyway. But yeah, I do think they're coming back. Not so much for first or second. I think virtual interviews are here to stay, and then you go to a final in person or assessment center.
Right. Zara said, in response to the wildcard questions, that she's had one that said if she was to have dinner at a restaurant, which three people would she invite and why? That's a good one, I would say.
That is a good one. That, you know what, I actually thought the other day, similar question, who's my hero? And I just had to think on the spot, like, what would I actually say? And my thought experiment was I was going to say my mum, because it's just the first person
Yeah.
that came to my head. But equally, if I had more time, there probably would be iconic people, like, I don't know, sports people like Serena Williams or something like that. So maybe now that you have the luxury of time, Zira, I would say just come up with those three and lock them in and have your reasons, and you've parked it for a rainy day.
You also said that she struggles at times with five, which is the commercial and the technical
Oh,
questions.
yeah. And it depends, obviously, how intense they are. Obviously, if you're going for quite high-end consulting places, it will be a full-on case study interview and there's a lot more to it. But yeah, I think for an internship like Octopus, it's going to be accessible enough. I do really want to stress that you've got to this point for a reason, and
Yeah.
don't have a business degree. I mean, again, for me, I had a theatre and performance degree, but I'd done extracurriculars. I was the elected president of the Raising and Giving Society at uni, and we turned over hundreds of thousands of pounds for charity. So that's what allowed me, I think, to get in the room. But it's also a reassurance to me that, oh, I do have commercial awareness. And trust me, if you're getting to this point, you have more than probably what you realize. So just lean on what you know and be
Yeah.
confident to say it.
Yeah, I would agree with her as well. When I was doing my internship, I had no corporate experience and I was on a gap year. So I didn't even wasn't even working towards a degree anyways. So I would say kind of do your research. A lot of the like I would say your job description is like your book. Know it in and out. And if it's like David said, he didn't know anything about heat pumps. He had to research. So things like that, you need to be very proactive. And I think once you have the research and you're very proactive, you can actually like use that against you, like sorry, use that for you. Like, so if the interviewer asks you a question and you don't know, you could like, okay, I don't know about this, but I do know about this, and this is in relation to the job description. Like, you can always try to find ways to make the interview work for you. But I think it's just about doing your research and just making sure you know the job description in and out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Actually, something I wrote down that Naomi, you said earlier, and I wanted to find a place to come back to that, is this idea of empathizing with employers. We don't really have that conversation a lot because I think we sort of not villainize them, but we don't see them as real people. It's just like, there's these horrible people that are judging me and they're interrogating me. But actually, just if we think about it as a two-way street, imagine you had a business and you need to hire someone who can help you with a specific problem. That problem means the world to you. You need that problem to go away. So if you wrote a spec to be like, hey, look, I'm posting this on LinkedIn. I want to find someone who can help me do X, Y, and Z. These are the qualities I think they will have. These are the skills I think they will have. If someone really like truly listened to you and said, you know what, I have these qualities, I have these skills, I can help you with said
Yeah.
problem, you're going to want to hire them on the spot. But if
On the
you
spot.
don't listen, then it's like you're not going to buy into it. You wouldn't hire that person. So just really remember this is a human to human interaction. And the more you can show that you've listened, the more you're going to win at this game, which is employability.
Exactly. I've just put into the chat as well is an interview template that we have here at Beyond Education that literally breaks down the job description for you and how you can match your experiences with your transferable skills and how you can create kind of this answers already. Guys, it worked for me for Octopus 2 years ago. It worked for me for Federated Terminus 2 years ago. So I can swear by it. So I'll just it's it there in the chat. So guys, copy it. It's a Notion template. You can always reuse it all the time. So I think that for me, breaking down your experiences and kind of plugging in, okay, where's this transferable skills coming from? And adding it onto what I said before about those three main experiences I want to talk about, it makes it so much easier for you to go into that interview more prepared. And then you can also just link all your commercial awareness and all your research that you've done as well.
Yes. And actually, sorry, Demi, you've just reminded me that might be all you need. And if this is all you needed this evening, amazing. Go forth and conquer this. But for anyone that's thinking, I wish I could just see and feel what this top 1% candidate is like, then I actually wanted to signpost you something that I launched earlier this week, which is my unforgettable interviewee pack. So basically what this has is the full 90-minute masterclass. Obviously, I had to skim over quite a few things today. So you've got the full masterclass that I did on Monday plus the slides, but most importantly, over 30 bonus videos where I walk you through the toughest interview questions across these 6 types that we've mentioned today. So things like the dry cleaner one, tell me about yourself, you know, the ones that typically a lot of us can struggle with. There's 4 explanations on how I would recommend you answer, and then I role model every single question. And plot twist, I actually used Octopus Energy for a good 3 to 4 of them. Not because I knew this was coming up, but I think it was front of mind. I was like, you know what, Octopus is a great company to work for. So that's how I knew the stuff about the energy sector, because it was very fresh in my mind. You also get 20 smart questions you can ask your next interviewer. That's a full guide, not just 20 questions, like a full 6-page guide. So yes, if you were interested in that, it's 50% off, 20 quid. If you want to, let's go there. If you want to check it out, out of curiosity, QR code is there, but no pressure. It's just if you're thinking, I really want that sort of next step. Do we have any more questions?
Fantastic. Yeah, there was one question in the chat, really. Tade said, do you have any tips on rambling or your opinion on restarting your answer?
Yeah, regarding restarting, I'm kind of a fan.
Yeah.
If you're like, you know what, can I just start that again? Like you can almost just have a bit of humor to it, and they're never going to say no. But yeah, I think you can just say, I literally did this with a client where we did a mock experience, and the very first question, he just paused, realized he'd messed it up, and just started again. Just didn't even give me a justification, just started again, and it was amazing. And I just totally forgot. By the time we got to the end of that interview, I had totally forgotten that had even happened. And he actually had to remind me because he was so conscious of it. He was like, oh my God. But that first question, I was like, wow, I actually forgot because everything else was just good. So yeah, what is most important is that you end up giving us the best response you can. And sometimes that looks like pausing. Sometimes that looks like restarting. So yeah, that's fine. And regarding rambling, I feel like that is quite a subjective definition. When are we truly rambling? How do we know that? And obviously I think it's on a spectrum. So just know that you're on a journey of everyone here, me included, we're all on a journey of constantly becoming better communicators. I even have things this evening that I'm working on. I know I have certain fillers that I need to think about. I know I need to slow down, have pauses at certain moments. So just know that you're never going to be perfect. And if you're aware that you can ramble, you can use filler words, what's one thing you can do in your next interview to just tighten that up that little bit? It might be one filler word you're going to watch out for, or it might be one question that you're thinking, you know what, if I don't have this planned, I think I will ramble. So you practice that one a little bit extra. But this is a journey, so be kind and give yourself grace and you will improve.
Definitely. And another thing I also want to mention is, as much as this is an opportunity for them to interview you about the job, this is also an opportunity for you to interview them about their company. Like, this is a mutual beneficial opportunity here. Like, I never want us to go into the interview thinking, oh my God, I need to be obviously be on your best behavior, know all your research and stuff, but this is also your chance to get to know them. And if that means you've actually thought about it, you're like, you know what, that's not a good enough answer, I'm gonna restart it. You're putting your best foot forward and showing them the best possible candidate you can be. Do that. Okay. And like Farah said, you don't necessarily have to justify that. Just kind of, you know what? Even better, I think this opportunity allowed me to show this. Like, put your best foot forward, and if that means restarting, if that means pausing, yeah, do that, because this is not just an opportunity for them to get to know you, but an opportunity for you to also get to know them as well.
Yeah, like I've even known people to be sort of 30 seconds into a call scenario and then just been like, I'm really sorry, I've just realized now what you wanted from me from the question. Can I just give you a new example? And I'm literally like, please. Give me a better one. That's fine. So long as I feel like you're answering my question to the best of your ability, yeah, any way to get there. So yeah.
So another question is, what tips do you have about portfolios? When is it the best time to discuss it during an interview?
Yeah, Obi, do you mind just confirming? Are you thinking marketing? Are you thinking technical, like software engineering developer, or something else? Because that might inform what I recommend. And if it's with respect to Octopus specifically, or just on a general level, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so I applied for like the data engineering role at the internship with Octopus. I mean, I think also the forecasting role as well. So mostly my kind of expertise is in data analysis. So I've kind of been
Mm.
creating a portfolio that kind of displays, how I like clean data and model it and normalization and everything as well. Um, so I've built my portfolio in terms of the skills that I want to kind of display that I have and everything. So I
Yeah,
just
love
wonder.
that. Yeah. And thank you so much for unmicing. It's really good to connect with you all more. So I
Yeah.
would say this is prime material for those competency-based questions. If you can say like, tell me about a time when you've done, rigorous data cleaning or something like that, you can say, oh, well, actually, in fact, I've been working on my own project as we speak. It's in my portfolio. You might have had a chance to link to it, but if not, I'm happy to link you after today via email. But in essence, let me tell you a bit more about it. So yeah, they might have even checked it out, but it's always good just to remind them. And I'd do that extra little thing of like, hey, let me just email it you after as a courtesy. But yeah, I think just use it as the rich material for your evidence as to why you'd be great for said skill or quality. And that might be enough. I'm thinking like maybe like at the end, they might have follow-up questions and then you can absolutely just end up having a great conversation. But that's probably all it needs, actually. Keep that one simple.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Ivy, as well. I'm gonna leave the floor for 30 seconds for any last questions. Anyone?
Yeah, I actually have a question if that's fine.
Yeah,
So I had
go
an
for
interview.
it.
Pardon?
I said, yeah, go for it.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So I actually had an interview with a company, maybe around February time, and they asked me this one question. So they said, what separates the firm from its competitors, and why are you interested in the firm? And I answered the question, but looking back, I feel like I should have talked more about their global presence. But because they're based in the UK, do you think I'd be at a disadvantage if I talk about their global presence and how that separates it from its competitors?
No, not necessarily. I know what you mean of like you're going to be in a UK based team, but no, they're inviting you to basically answer that question, which I would recommend you do anyway. What is unique and special about them and why therefore do you want to work there? Because if you do that, then you can't copy and paste it for another competitor. It is exclusive to them and it will make them
Yes.
feel valued and special. So yeah, you can say, well, I recognize I'm going to be in the UK office if I'm fortunate enough to join you. However, I do recognize your global presence. I recognize you're in these markets. I know that you're expanding into this new market. Or like, just like add a little, je ne sais quoi, add some more golden details in there. But yeah, why not? It's something that's genuinely piqued your interest and is unique to them. It's your motivation. So even though it's going to be UK based, you can just say, it's really exciting to me to work for potentially a global company because I recognize you're expanding, you have ambitious goals for growth, and I want to be a part of that. I see myself as ambitious and I want to be at the heart of the action. So what better place to potentially start my career than a place like yourselves? So you can find a way to connect it. But no, I don't think you're at a disadvantage for that at all.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
My
As
pleasure.
well. Yeah, I would agree as well. So I think that's the end of today's session. Thank you
Cool.
so much, everybody, for turning up this evening. It's Thursday evening. Thank you so much to our amazing career coach, Farah, for your amazing insights. And I wish you all the best. Good luck in all the interviews. And hopefully, we get to see some of you guys in the Octopus office this summer. And if not, we'll see you next summer. And we'll see you for all the other opportunities that we have here at Beyond Education. But yeah, my name is Demi, and I hope to see you guys soon. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye.
Thank you,
Have a
Demi.
nice evening.
Everyone. Best of
Thank you.
luck. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.